Hello, my name is David Daniel. I'm the publisher of the Centreville Press, and as most of you folks know, we're doing interviews, personal eyewitness interviews of the people who were involved and living in the town of Brent back on May the 27th, 1973, when the tornado came through and destroyed the town. And we've had some pretty interesting things that we've learned. And in our judicial system and in our way of understanding everything, you can't get a better description of anything than an eyewitness account.
Amen.
We have a gentleman with us here today that has experienced the tornado on that day, and we're very fortunate that he has agreed to come here and speak with us about that. So I hope that you'll introduce yourself, if you would, please.
My name is Phillip Marsh Sr. I'm a citizen of Bibb County. I'm a deacon at Pine Grove Missionary Baptist Church.
Mr. Marsh, where were you 50 years ago when the tornado came through on that Sunday?
I was in Bibb County. I was at home. Actually, I was at Jolly Charlie over here, right on this hillside. And I had the lady I'm married to today there. So we was eating a quick late afternoon down there. And I sit to the side of the table. We were sitting outside, and I sit to the side of the table that was facing north southeast. That's looking across the river bridge.
Yes, sir.
And she was looking back to town. And I remember looking at let me tell you how this day started off. It started off windy. It was windy, and it had little clouds everywhere, but it just wasn't cloudy. And when we played ball in the field, that thing crossed, that tornado crossed. We had played ball all that day up into the early afternoon.
It was a beautiful day.
It was quite a nice day. And late over in that afternoon, like I said, we went to Jolly Charlie, sitting there eating, and I was facing the storm coming into Bibb County.
You can see the darkness.
I was looking dead at it. It looked to me like it had a color like this cloth in the middle of it, but it was dark on both sides. And I said to myself, that's a windstorm. And we sat there and talked a few more minutes. I happened to look up at the cloud, and the cloud was doing something strange because the cloud up far over here was making a haste this way, and the cloud this way was hasting. I said, this cloud is going two different directions. It was coming in like here and going this way.
It got your attention, didn't it?
It got my attention. And so I told her this. I said, let me take you home. I said, because I got to go back over here. We had some small kids at home. I said, I got to get back over here with the kids because these kids gonna get scared when this little windstorm gets you. So she said, okay. So I took her home, and I was coming back, and I had to get in a holler before I pull up to get to our house. The road dropped over in a kind of holler. And as I was riding, I was looking at the cloud. It was getting closer and closer. And it had a color, a silver-looking color. And all of a sudden, it just got closer. It looked like the cloud was leaning. And it's got a red view. It looked like it had a lot of red stuff in it. And so I said, this is going to get pretty bad. I pull up, and just as I pull up on that, coming out of that holler, our house sits on a hill. The hill's resident was on another hill over here next to 5.
Yes, sir.
And my auntie had a house just straight at the end of that hollow with great big old trees, way bigger than this table here. And I had another neighbor in between that house and this house, and our house. And then I had another neighbor off on down the hill where that thing came, where the storm come across the field. Making it to the house, and when I got out the car, my brother said, you ready to go? I said, no. I said, let's wait on this storm. I said, you must not seen this bad cloud coming up behind the house. And the thing was coming, like I said, it over here, it looked like it was sun was still shining. But if you had been looking behind that house and a little bit further that way, it looked like awful. So he said, okay. And we were sitting there and we had put a antenna. You know, back then we had antennas to the TV.
You're right.
And I had an antenna on top of a train tie, you know, to make it higher so I can get good reception. I had over to this antenna just like this, talking to him. He up on the porch. Our house was probably high as this thing here off the ground. And I'm standing on the ground. And we were talking and we were looking. And I heard him say, "What the world is this?" And when I turned in and looked, this thing had come out of that hollow and sit down in that field and was going across. And that thing was making all some racket I had never heard. And I was too scared to move. I mean, I just froze. And over where we was, it was just a calm. But out in that field, you could see all kinds of debris. Now, they said normally a tornado go clockwise. But to my memory, the debris was going the opposite, the way of a clock. You know, clock turns.
Right.
We're going just the opposite way. And I could hear, I mean, we still looking now. That big, I couldn't see the hill house no more. Cause the darkness had covered it. It looked like to me, the cloud had come down out to heaven and sat on the ground. To me, that's what it looked like. And it darkened out everything over there. I couldn't even see the supermarket. I couldn't see the houses over there on that edge. I couldn't even see a house next door to us, and it was a distance here to the courthouse. That thing come.
So just clear as everything on one side, and on the other side, it just like a wall come through. Huh?
It was clear as a bell on
we had Miss Rosa here. She was Hill.
Mm-hmm.
We had Rosa here 2 days ago, and she was telling us about the day, and she described it very similar to what you're describing it. But you were old enough to drive at that time.
Yeah, I was old enough to drive.
But there were a lot of children over there in the community, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was. But we had a bunch of kids.
How many did you have at your house?
About 6.
6.
6 or 7. And like I was saying, the thing.
Were you able to get them all inside?
We got everybody. Well, fortunately, when I got there, my brother had got all of them inside. And that thing, as it was crossing that field, this thing picked up a house, an A-frame house with the top like this.
Right.
It picked it up. As a matter of fact, it was the house to the left side of us, our neighbor. Like I said, it won't for us here to the thing there. They picked that house up and turned it over on the top. It didn't tear it up. It just turned it over. It just took it up and shot it on the A-frame, bottom uppers. And it literally destroyed that one down there in my auntie's and the Hill houses, and there was another little house set next to the hill. It destroyed it. This thing picked up a bass boat. You might remember it was a place selling boats down here below Brent. I forget where it was down here by Pat Carpenter, by the old junkyard down there, where the scrap yard, where the grass shed.
I know where
it was a marine place down there. That thing picked up a boat and brought a slamp over there and tied it around. Out of here, got through damaging the cutting that shearing that tree. It was an oak tree, like I said, about uses bigger than this thing here, but it took all the limbs off of it. And it took a boat and wrapped it around one of the limbs like a bow tie. That thing just hanging up a boat. And it was this animal. I'll tell you about the aftermath after, but like that thing went across there and I could hear it destroying all of them. I can hear it destroying that supermarket. I can hear the noise that thing was making. I can hear the metal just squeaking, like it was twisting it up. All of that. And I'm still on the ground looking at it. And all of a sudden, I'm standing like this, with my feet flat on the ground, with my head. If I hadn't been holding on to that antenna, I'd probably been gone. I was standing flat-footed, but I had a hold on that antenna. And all of a sudden, that wind hit my foot. I could feel it was just like somebody running into it with a train. And that thing picked me up. And I could not put my foot back down on the ground.
That strong wind. Yeah.
That wind would not allow me to put my foot on the ground. And all I could do was sit there and put the other hand on there and hold for mercy and looking around, trying to see what I'm going to do next. The antenna had them bent down itself and caught me in the back, the top of the antenna. I'm glad of this. It didn't let go. You know what I'm saying? It just bent. If it had come loose above, I'd probably been gone then. But I held on to it, and when I did get a chance, I pulled myself on the porch and rolled. And I kept rolling until I rolled in the door. And my brother told me, he said, close the door. I looked up, I said, it ain't gonna do no good. I said, ain't no top in the house. Why would I close the door? Ain't no top. And this house was like this here. It was doing like this here. It was moving just like this here. And in the boys' room, we had a big picture window in the boys' room. It was about one of them huge windows. It was bigger than that door, but it was just like so. And we also had one in the kitchen, and it was a straight shot. That house sat there and did this, all of a sudden it said, boom, like that. That was that window down there busted. The house was relaxed a little, but it still was moving. And all of a sudden I heard it again. Boom! That was the next one. And it just looked like it did like that. And when it did, that was over. But you could walk around that house and stick your hand out the way it was pushing. You could take your hand and push it to the outside of the house. That house was holding on by one nail, I would say. It was just that close. I had my car, I parked this out of Centreville tree. That thing picked up that Centreville tree, didn't damage the car. Looked like it picked it up over the car, spin it around, and laid that thing as closest to the car as it can get. And it maybe put one little pinstripe. I don't know whether it was from the turn or what, but it just was so little it didn't even scratch the paint off.
What kind of car did you have?
I had an Impello.
Chevrolet Impala.
Chevrolet Impello.
4-door?
66.
4-door?
4-door, yeah.
I remember that car. Yeah, my mom and dad had one of those cars. I drove.
Someone stole mine shortly after then.
Mine had a 396. What was yours?
Mine had a 327 there. Yeah.
Well, they always had to keep up with the motor, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. I had a 327 in mine. And like I said, the aftermath on that thing left, we had some chickens.
I bet you didn't have any anymore, did you?
Yeah, we had them chicken. I don't know where they come from, but there was this one particular chicken that came back. He was coming out from where that thing crossed.
He walked home.
He walked over there, he was walking cross-legged. That chicken had been picked. He ain't have about 2 or 3 fellas. It was on that little place right back on this little tweezed thing back on the back.
Yes, sir.
Like he said, y'all gonna eat me now. but this chicken, it was, you can look back at
I bet if you'd have had fellas, you wouldn't have had many left.
I probably wouldn't have. But like I said, looking back at that thing was horrifying. That was the first one I had ever, and this was the first one that known had showed itself in 73. That had showed itself out in the opening.
Yeah.
And from then on, they've been just walking on up in when they feel like it. Now, it ain't nothing to look out and see a tornado. Cause they so, I guess, and once they open the door, all the rest of them just walked in. But I have rode in a lot of storms, but nothing like the one that I seen now. And just like I said, in that barn animal, in that what he had that barn at, the aftermath of that thing, it was a mule, a jack or something they had out there, old farm mule. This thing picked up a 6x6 and ran it through this animal. And when it ran it through him with such speed, it went on in the ground, and the animal didn't even hit the ground. The animal was just resting on it, just like this, but he was dead. And it took a piece of tin off of a bond. And it looked like to me he drove that thing over 6 foot in the ground. Mr. Frisco tried to dig it up, and he never did dig it up. And the Tim's on there was something like 12 foot. And I ain't saying that was a 12-foot piece. I ain't saying it was a 16-foot piece. But I know he didn't get to the end of it.
Well, there's very few people, I would imagine, that seen what the tornado's like you did there and lived to tell about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you say you had 11, how many folks in your house?
It's about 8, 7,
Eight?
something.
Well, I know Miss Hill, she was telling us that there were 15 in their house.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was one person that passed from the storm,
Yeah,
am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a bunch of folks over there. It just sounded like to me it was a miracle that you folks was protected and was able to come out of that without serious injury. Did you have any injuries?
I didn't have no injury, and didn't no one in the house get injury.
That is amazing.
And
that is amazing.
Like I said, close as that thing came to us, that was a miracle.
Well, Miss Hill said they had 15 in the house, and
Mm-hmm.
it blew the house away. The only thing left was the chimney.
Whew, my God.
And I thought to myself, how in the world did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
How do you have 15 people in a house and it get blowed away, and none of them was injured, just one that was taken?
Yeah.
The Lord's providence is hard to understand sometimes, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Well,
Yes, it is.
I'm amazed at how accurately you've still got these pictures in your mind.
I just certain things you ain't gonna forget, and that's one of the things. I mean, I ain't gonna never forget that. I
No,
will
I
not forget that.
I bet you're glad that railroad tie was holding
I'm
up.
glad that railroad tie was holding it, and I'm glad that we nailed it good enough up top that it didn't lay over. Because if it ain't laid over, that was gonna make me slide. Because I was holding a round object.
I was thinking when you were telling about that antenna, I think my job back in them days was to go out and adjust the antenna, turn it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of that. That was one of my jobs, was to turn it. And somebody hollering at me, a little more, a little more.
That was in your family too.
Yes, sir. I think everybody had
Everybody had that because that was the deal. You
But
turn
you-
it a little bit more, yeah.
Well, y'all was a farming family, I assume, right? Y'all did farming out there?
Yeah, we farmed in that area, and that thing cut. And then that another thing about that storm got down so low in certain places over there, it cut grade lower than a lawnmower cut.
Interesting.
I mean, it's amazing.
I had a gentleman telling me, and I did not see this, but he said that the pavement on the highway was rolled up like paper.
Yeah, it'll do that.
That is amazing. And you saw an animal with a board run all the way through.
all the way through him and
driven
in
into the
the ground. And that animal did not touch the ground. He was just leaning. Always just like with his head, like that.
Amazing.
And that thing throw a needle.
Now, is this y'all's house was located behind this store here, Mr. Davis Superstore? Is that right? Back
That's
behind.
Dixie?
Yes, sir.
Is that Dixie
Well,
Superstore?
it's the Dixie Superstore.
Yeah, that's Dixie's, yeah. So if you was a set, our house should have been red, because we walked, it was a path. Now the young house should have been here.
I see.
It was a cotton field come up through there. And we had a path to come across the edge of that cotton field to get to our house. So we had a path, the hills over here, and what we had to do, go around and come around, and our house should have been about right over here.
I'm going to hold this up for the folks to see at home. This is the Dixie Superstore that he's speaking of, and you can see the damage there. It appears that thing had a specific boundary of the wind that it was building, and it just cleaned the ground. That is amazing. So y'all can get some idea of what he's talking about, because this was taken right after the storm. And we're gonna have on our website a number of these pictures, some of these pictures from different things after the storm, and also some that are going to be showing what the town looked like before the storm. I asked a gentleman the other day that was talking about the storm, and I showed him these pictures, and I asked him, I said, if you could go back to what it was like before, I said, what would you want to be different, that you would like to see back like it was? He said, I want to see everything back like it was.
Me, I think it's better than it was.
Really?
I really do.
In what way, sir?
In what way, if you had to come through this town before this storm come through,
Yes, sir.
the town was built right on the street. In other words, you step out of a store,
You're on the road.
you're on the road. So it opened us back a little to make progress.
Do you remember any of these places, Mr.
I ain't got my glasses here.
Morris? You gonna borrow mine? I got some might help. Try them if you want to.
Let me look at these.
You recognize any of these places? I'm gonna have bigger pictures when we put them on the website.
I can tell you the names of them, and there ain't no name on here, but
No, sir.
it's a West End. Now this was downtown Brent.
Yes, sir. That's the hotel there.
Yeah, the hotel used to sit right there in that area where the church is.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. I believe this should be West End, a store called West End, and behind that should be that Olin Belcher's place back there. And I cannot remember none of the houses.
May I ask what do you do today? Are you retired?
I'm retired today. I retired from a steel company. I got 48 years with a steel company.
My goodness.
After I left after that storm, I think after the storm, I went to work for a foundry, and I left that foundry. No, I worked for a sawmill about 13 years, and I left it, and I went to a foundry. And so roughly I got 48 years, and just had 2 jobs.
That says something about your character and your what you considered your job and how important it was to you. You did it well to have been able to do it that many years.
Yeah.
Things are not quite like they used to be, I don't believe, are they?
No, it really ain't. And
what do you enjoy doing? You in your retirement? Do you?
Right now, I just pit around a little. I'm not gonna be still. I don't be still. I can't, because like I said, I'm used to working 12-hour shift when I was working on it. When I was working with the steel company. And right now, I still gets up. I ain't stopped. I always got up at 2 o'clock at night. But I'm awake. I just don't get up. I'm awake at 2 o'clock. I can get up. Mm-hmm. But I'll lay there and force myself and wrestle around until I can see some daylight, and I'm out of there. Cause I can't do it. And every now and then I might work on show someone how to work on an automobile. Cause that was my passion, automobile, working on cars. As a young man. And every so often now, someone will come in and say, show me how to do this, or show me how to do that, and I'll probably end up doing it, but...
Well, I'm probably outnumbered here. You a Chevrolet man, because you had that 327 Chevrolet 66. That's a Chevrolet man over there.
Oh, yeah.
I just bought a Ford.
Okay.
Please don't hold it against me.
No, I ain't gonna lie. I had several Fords. I had a drop top Galaxy. I hate I got rid of the car. I should have held to it, because that was a classic. But most of my cars I had in my younger days were GTOs.
I had a GTO one.
That's all I ever owned.
400 GTO?
400, 455s, and I was a quite troublemaker back then. We ain't gonna talk about that, but
we're talking about Mr. Marsh today. We ain't talking about what I've been doing. Yeah, but, I have to be careful when I get my whole family together, because I got children and grandchildren, and some of the things I just soon not tell them about it, because I ain't real proud of how foolish I could have been, and how foolish I was at one time. But the Lord was merciful; He brought me through that. If there was a storm, I was probably considered to be that storm.
Okay. But you often look at how the kids do today, and some parents, they will get rallied up and say and crash down on them. But you got to look back what you did when you was coming up, and if you look at it that way, you would try to sense them in the other direction, not try to force them in. Because when you force them, that's what's going to make them do it even more. Well, because you try to get them in sense.
I think it would be good, since what we're doing, the reason we're doing this is so that future generations will get to know a little bit about what happened in Brent back then, maybe a little bit about what it's like. And a man like you, I know you a deacon in your church. What would you tell people, generations behind us that's going to hear this one day? Would you give them any kind of advice about how Now, a man that's had only 2 jobs in a year, a career like you have, probably got some wisdom to share. Do you want to share any wisdom with these younger generation?
Well, about these storms, let's take them serious. I mean, no, just because it don't hit you when that meteorologist says it's not hit you, don't look out and say, well, it ain't gonna hit us next time. So be real wise when you making the decision whether I'm gonna sit this storm out or I ain't gonna ignore the warning. Don't ignore a warning, because that's dangerous. Them things is dangerous, and it ain't saying you can say, hold up a minute, let me get into my safe place. You better get to it immediately. Even if it don't show. Get to a safe place.
Well, your mule didn't know it was dangerous, but he found out real quick, didn't he?
Yeah. The animals is way smaller than us humans. Smarter than us humans. I'm sorry about that. Smarter than us humans in a sense. Because they can sense a direction. A deer, you ain't going to find a deer in a place that storm going to hit. What do that tell you? They know it's coming. They're going to get out of there and they're going to get to them. Any birds is the same way. If you sit and look at some animals when they group in, when they predict this bad weather, you look at it, if any birds come land close in a tree around you, you ain't got to worry about it. But if you see them flying out of that area, you in trouble.
You need to be flying too, don't you?
You need to follow them birds.
You heard it here.
You need to follow them birds.
I take what this man got to say very seriously.
Yeah.
If you haven't got a weather radio and you ain't listening to James Spann, pay attention to what the animals are doing. They ain't dumb.
They ain't dumb.
They ain't dumb.
No. You must the ones you got houses. They knows when it's coming. Cause they gonna. I was looking at my little puppy just had a little puppy a couple of months ago. And it was that last bad weather coming here. She moved them out of one house facing this way and moved them to a lower place facing the opposite way.
Yeah.
So I was looking at that when she was doing that, and I had got the feet. I went back and I said, "We better get right." I said, "Something in the house." She said, "What?" I said, "That dog moved from out of her big old house and went and put them in a little one."
So you take note of them kind of things.
If I see it, I'm gonna notice. And I ain't gonna. I know. I'm serious. That is a sure thing. I'm from the country now. I pay attention to that.
Well,
Yes,
I am very appreciative of you coming over and sharing some time with us, sir. I got a feeling you and I, if we could sit around and just talk from now on, we'd probably come up with some things we would impress each other with.
Yes.
I can tell you how impressed I am. I'm even still here.
Okay, I am too. And likewise here.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate you coming and doing this with us today. God bless you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.